All right. Speaking of things that suck and are terrible, Jimmy Garoppolo is, yeah, I said it. Jimmy Garoppolo sucks.
Address him by his real name, porn star Jimmy.
Porn star, you're right. Porn star Jimmy. So porn star Jimmy, he's in a bit of a pickle at the moment, and the Raiders are in a bit of a pickle as well because they signed Jimmy Garoppolo to this 3-year, $66-67 million contract, which in and of itself was dumb. But add on to the fact that apparently, due to recent reports we have now seen, Jimmy Garoppolo's foot apparently isn't fully healed from the broken foot that happened last year against the Miami Dolphins. And there is apparently a clause in his contract that says that if he does not pass a physical by a certain date, that he can be waived with no expense to the Raiders. The problem lies for both Jimmy and the Raiders in the fact that Jimmy would lose a job and the Raiders would not have a quarterback. So, Makana, do you want to just kind of talk about the dysfunction of the Raiders and their quarterback situation and everything kind of going on with that?
Yeah, the Raiders are a franchise that ever since they had competency have been just ridiculously bad. And by competency, I mean early 2000s when they were good.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to mention, who was coaching back then, but they were good back then.
Yeah.
And overall, they've just kind of spiraled downhill. Management's been bad. Coaching's been bad. They've gotten rid of any good player. I know that you're pretty happy that you got Mr. Khalil Mack out of the Raiders a little bit ago, but they just don't do anything that makes sense. They draft horribly. They don't develop their players, and then they hold on to players that doesn't make sense to hold on to. I talked about it earlier. I don't think Josh Jacobs is very good. I wouldn't want Josh Jacobs on my team, and then they're paying him. They're going to pay him a lot of money to be. I don't even necessarily think of him as an elite running back,
right?
And he's getting a lot of money, so it's just like, one, what are you doing from that stance? The other thing is like they have Devontae Adams, and they decide to get a quarterback that cannot play to his stat. Like, first off, the Jimmy Garoppolo move just made no sense.
Yeah, no, it just did.
Devontae Adams excels at routes outside the numbers, those corner routes, those out routes, those deep fades.
Jimmy G can't make those throws.
Those are the exact throws that Jimmy G doesn't make.
No,
is everything that Devontae Adams is great at.
You know what Jimmy can throw? He can throw a 4-yard check down. He's great at those. He can.
They drafted Michael Mayer. Great pick for Jimmy Garoppolo.
No, exactly. Michael Mayer was a fantastic pick. The other thing with Devontae Adams, bro, the quarterback you had, Derek Carr, and I don't think he's great. I think he's maybe a little bit overrated. He's fine. Not only that, he had elite chemistry with Devontae Adams. They were college roommates. I mean, they were besties. They were tight. You know what I mean? So I just think that whole shit show at quarterback for the Raiders it's just not, it's sad and it's a terrible example, but it's also a perfect reflection of what they've been as a franchise. You said since the early 2000s, I would say about the same time. I would say ever since Al Davis died, they've just been not the Raiders. They've been the Mark Davis led Raiders have not been the once proud elite historic NFL franchise. They've been incompetent. They've been terrible. They've had obviously the highest amount of players arrested. They've made terrible coaching decisions, terrible GM decisions. They lucked out at quarterback, taking Derek Carr, who was there for 6-ish years.
Yeah.
But they've just been an atrocious franchise. And I honestly think that their best strategy at this point is just to tank this year and say, Caleb Williams, welcome to Las Vegas. But I just don't know if they're bad enough. I don't know if they're number one pick bad enough, honestly. I mean, if they're going to start Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell, possibly. But, I mean,
what do you think about them going
after
somebody else? Trading for one of these young quarterbacks that hasn't worked out.
Yeah. They could trade. I mean, Trey Lance. Yeah.
Trey Lance.
Yeah, those guys are not off.
What about Mac Jones?
Mac Jones, I mean, would definitely make sense because of McDaniel. I mean, McDaniel was there in New England and stuff. And, I mean, he signed Brian Hoyer because of all his years in New England. So Mac Jones would not surprise me. But then again, if you get Mac Jones, you're just mediocre at best. Like, you're not good. You're not anywhere near the Chargers or the Chiefs. And then if Sean Payton works out in Denver, you're not anywhere near the Broncos. So I just think it's a terrible, terrible time to be a Raiders fan. And I'm very sorry for all you drunk Las Vegas residents that have to watch them play. Just terrible.
There's a reason they're drunk.
Yeah, there's a reason they're drunk. They got to watch Jimmy Garoppolo and his broken foot every week. I mean, can you imagine being like a Raiders fan and like being so excited to get a new quarterback, and then your team go out and sign Jimmy Garoppolo for $67 million?
Dude, all you're hearing about all offseason is Lamar, Aaron
Yeah. Jalen
Rodgers,
Hurts got a new contract. All
like
these guys.
everyone's kind of going crazy, and then it's just like, oh, we got Jimmy.
Even yeah, I don't yeah. And then there was even I think people that were gonna say that the Raiders could trade up from 7 to 4 or 5 to
Yeah,
go
it could have
get.
been. Some people were thinking Stroud,
Yeah,
Anthony Richardson.
I remember that stretch of time when Stroud was falling because of the test, whatever test it was. They were saying, "Oh, Stroud to 7 to the Raiders," and I was like, "That would be that would be a gift from God if C.J. Stroud fell all the way to number 7 for the Raiders." And absolutely none of that happened, and it was just Jimmy G. And now it might not even be Jimmy G. So, bad time to be a Raiders fan, and Raiders fans will keep you guys in our prayers.